What if I told you that one quiet, ordinary moment turned into something so bizarre, so unexplainable, that even investigators gave up trying to understand it? Today's story isn't fiction. It really happened. And once you hear it, you'll never look at normal the same way again. If you love strange, dark, and mysterious stories told just the way they happened, then you're in the right place. We post 5 days a week, so give the like button a relaxing spa day. But don't mention the creepy whispers coming from the massage room. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's dive into today's unsettling tale. On the evening of August 10th, 2020, a 67-year-old retired teacher named Margaret Williams was tending to her garden in the backyard of her home in Salem, Oregon. Margaret lived alone in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everyone knew each other and looked out for one another. She had lived in the same house for over 30 years and was beloved by all her neighbors. That particular evening, Margaret was watering her prized rose bushes when she noticed her next-door neighbor, a friendly man named Tom Bradley, who had moved in about 6 months earlier, struggling to carry several heavy boxes from his car to his front door. Tom was a traveling salesman who was often away for weeks at a time, and Margaret had always appreciated how quiet and considerate he was when he was home. Being the helpful person she was, Margaret called over the fence and offered to help Tom with his boxes. Tom gratefully accepted, and Margaret walked around to his front yard. The boxes were indeed quite heavy, and Tom explained they contained samples for his sales territory, kitchen appliances and gadgets that he demonstrated to potential clients. As they carried the boxes inside, Tom offered Margaret a cup of tea as a thank you for her help. Margaret accepted the invitation, as she often enjoyed chatting with neighbors and was curious to see how Tom had decorated his house since moving in. Tom's house was immaculately clean and sparsely furnished, which Margaret found a bit odd for someone who had been living there for 6 months. When she mentioned this, Tom explained that he was rarely home due to his traveling job and preferred a minimalist lifestyle. As they sat in Tom's kitchen drinking tea and making small talk, Margaret began to feel drowsy. She apologized, saying she must be more tired from gardening than she thought. Tom was very understanding and offered to walk her home, but Margaret insisted she was fine and could make it the short distance to her own house. Margaret thanked Tom for the tea and headed home, but she never made it to her front door. The next morning, Margaret's sister called the police when Margaret failed to show up for their weekly breakfast date and didn't answer her phone. When officers arrived at Margaret's house, they found her car in the driveway, her purse on the kitchen counter, and no signs of forced entry or struggle. Neighbors were interviewed, including Tom Bradley, who said he had seen Margaret safely to his front door the night before and assumed she had made it home without incident. He seemed genuinely concerned about her disappearance and volunteered to help with the search efforts. For 3 days, police and volunteers searched the neighborhood and surrounding areas for any sign of Margaret. On the 4th day, investigators decided to take a closer look at Tom Bradley's background and discovered something alarming. There was no record of Tom Bradley existing before he moved to this address 6 months ago. When police returned to question Tom, they found his house completely empty. He had vanished without a trace, taking everything with him. A deeper investigation revealed that Tom Bradley was actually Robert Chen, a man with a history of elder fraud who had been using various false identities to gain the trust of elderly neighbors before robbing them. But Margaret Williams was different from his previous victims. She had been kind and helpful to him, and investigators believe this unexpected, genuine friendship caused Robert to panic and flee. Margaret Williams was found 5 days later, alive but weak, locked in a storage unit across town. Robert had drugged her tea with a sedative, panicked when she became unconscious, and instead of harming her further, had left her in the storage unit with water and snacks before disappearing forever. Margaret recovered fully, and Robert Chen was never found. To this day, she says she still prays for Tom Bradley, hoping that their brief friendship might have changed something in him for the better. If that gave you chills, imagine what we're sharing next. Hit like to keep the stories alive, and subscribe so you never miss the ones that vanish without a trace.